Well. We are back, friends and family. I hope you are enjoying. Uh, I hope you are appreciating these last few times we've been able to go live with my dear brother, Pastor Darrell. And man, I'm excited to be on tonight, to be sharing with him on this very powerful topic. Of course, this podcast is designed to add value to the lives of not just persons in leadership, but of course people who are everyday people who live life, who lead, and eventually we're going to engage in content surrounding relationships. Pastor Joe has written a book on that very topic, talking about before you go too far. So excited, of course, to have him. Pastor D, why don't you, let's just this time, let's do a little bit more talking about who you are, what you do, talk about the journey you've been on, and not just leadership, entrepreneurship. Come on, tell us a little bit more about you this time than we did the previous time.
Yeah, man, Terrence Samuels, thank you, brother, for having me on. Always a pleasure to be in your presence because every time I know we're talking, man, it's always something positive. It's always something to edify the body, glorify God, and so appreciate you, brother. Yeah, I mean, well, Darrell Jackson. Let's see, Mark chapter 10, verse 44 through 45. I'm a servant, brother. I mean, I'm a servant. I mean, I've have a lot of things God has blessed me to be able to do over the years as far as ministry speaking. From a ministry perspective, man. But really, man, I just feel like I'm a lead servant. With all the um, ministry opportunities from pastor to assistant pastor to deacon to minister of music to um, recording artists and producer, leadership development. You mentioned that earlier. Um, I've served as I'm board certified chaplain. Served at Houston Methodist Hospital as director of spiritual care and values integration. So I've done a lot of things. John Maxwell, speaker, coach. I have my own company, Raised Performance Group, where we equip leaders to equip leaders. And man, just love to serve. Just love to be in conversations and collaborations with people like yourself, man, that will continue to push this gospel out to the nations. This ball down the field. That we're on this winning team, and I just think we need to do all that we can to equip leaders. And of course, Ephesians 4, talk about God is giving gifted, men to a gifted body. And so my job, I see myself over the years, over the past, 35, 40 years of ministry as an equiper, as a connector, one that's really committed to ensuring that, man, we're maximizing the time that we have, while we're here. So appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, we definitely share, which is really what will connect us, a passion for leadership. Those who don't know, I'm also John Maxwell team member. But man, just Pastor Darrell has been a strong sounding board and significant voice as we think through um, leadership. How do we add value? How do we lead in a transformation? I'll kind of steer our discussion, just talk a little bit about John Maxwell would say everything rises and falls on the head of leadership. Everything is about leadership. You can't have a healthy family. You can't have healthy children. You can't lead. You can't have a healthy career. You can't have a healthy church. You can't without having some competency in leadership. And so a lot of people don't know how significant it is, or we are afraid to really explore ways to improve in our leadership. And I find oftentimes, depending on your cultural background, we can allow our culture to usurp or overrun leadership consciousness, right? Um, I'm African American.
I
You know,
didn't know. I didn't notice.
you didn't know that. You didn't know that. I'm African American, and coming from my culture, I'll talk about family. I'll talk about church. Right? Historically, I was raised first few years by my great grandfather, and in the home, leadership was do as I say, you go get a whooping.
That's right. That's right.
You know, just do what I say, and don't talk back. Don't ask
Hmm.
questions.
Yeah.
You know, that's the model of leadership I was provided in the home, and then that same style leads over into church. Do what the
Yeah.
pastor say. Do what the leaders say. We preach, obey. Don't disagree with the man of God. And so I think historically over the last 30, 40, 50 years, we're seeing that there has needed to be a shift. And man, we're trying to help keep this needle moving in the right direction. And so, man, let's think through today. Our content is going to be about leadership communication and active listening. Pastor Darrell, how important is it for leaders to utilize the skill of active listening, and what are the benefits to active listening in the leadership space?
Brother, that's of course a great question. Can I start with a story and then come back to?
Of course, be on your time, guy.
No, I'm
You
not.
the guru.
No, I'm not. I'm just a servant. Man, as I thought about active listening, your question, man, it takes me back to when I first learned of the term. The term, when I first learned of it, I was an intern at Houston Methodist Hospital in 2007, 2008, somewhere around there, right? And so before then, I had never heard the term active listening, and especially as we're applying it to leadership, no concept of active listening. So, as an intern at Houston Methodist Hospital downtown, the clinical pastoral education program that I went through, CPE, I was in that program actually to receive one credit for one of my master's degrees. And I thought it was just like what you see on TV. You go in the hospital and have your white, your black suit on with a white little collar, and man, go in there and say, God bless you. Well, when I got there, I discovered it was much more than that, right? And so they started giving us all these theories, all these concepts that really blew my mind because I didn't understand any of them. It didn't make sense to me. I'm straight like you, grew up in the church, and it was Bible, right? And so when I got to the hospital and I started listening to some of the concepts, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Well, anyway, this active listening concept came up. And so we began to have to exercise it in class, and work it, and engaging the listener, decoding, encoding, sender, receiver. What does it mean to be present in the conversation and not dominate a conversation? So we had to practice with our peers, and it was very hard. It was very hard because I I wasn't used to it, and but later, as it were, a year or two later, as I stayed in the program, went from an intern to a resident at Houston Methodist. Man, the skill became so, man, powerful, and I began to reflect back over the years, and let's jump to ministry, that I wasn't aware of the importance of active listening, really being able to fully engage with someone, hearing them, being present with them, responding with this word that they would tell us in CPE, the clinical pastoral education. It's called empathic listening.
Mm.
Right?
Empathic listening.
Haptic, right? Being empathetic, putting myself in their shoes, right? Sympathy is, I'm standing on top of the hill saying, you down at the bottom of the hill, you broke up, and I'm saying, well, man, I'm gonna pray for you, right? But empathy really means I'm going down the hill, getting in the ditch with you and helping you up, right? Empathic listening, the same way. I'm not trying to steer anything. I'm there with you, present in the conversation. And really being able to journey with you, the one who's speaking, as I'm the listener, receiving what the person is giving. And so I think that's where, for me, um, it was important to be able to, God sent me through that journey to come back to the place that I love, which is the church, and be able to assist leaders in really understanding the power and the if we sum up this active listening, I can give a couple words, but this act of love,
Mm.
right? This
Active
act
love.
is an act of love, right? Because I'm showing I love you, and I can say an act of respect. I respect you enough to want to hear what you're saying, because really, this act of love, this act of respect, it doesn't weaken my leadership, but it actually deepens my impact.
Mm. Wow. This
So,
act of respect doesn't weaken my leadership, it deepens. Wow. So, I mean, something so simple, right? As simple as being intentional about listening deepens the impact of the leader. If you're paying attention, if you're watching, I want you to post that in the comment. That's a quotable, that's a tweetable. That this and I love how you associated listening with love, right? Now I'm going to tread some theological and biblical waters that some may get me in trouble. But I was on a journey to to discover how to define love. So I did a whole bunch of reading and thinking. So how do I? Because oftentimes we don't know how to define it. We don't know what to say about it. So I started looking at a dictionary. So I think I said, love is value. And I took John 3:16. I said, let me test the theory. So God so loved the world, I know. I said, let me switch love and put value. For God so valued the world.
mhm.
It helped me to new picture, right? So I said, he valued, when you care for someone, you love someone, you have great value for it. And so when you think about the word value, it oftentimes removes a purely emotional element, but it incorporates, when you value your car, you take care of it. Whatever you value, you maintain. Now, I want to bring it back to the frame you just mentioned. That the active listening is an act of love, of value
Yeah,
in your leadership.
yeah, you place in value, definitely. I mean, I would, I'm not gonna mess with you on that John 16 piece, but I'm gonna leave it alone.
I was playing with it. I told you I was going to tread some water. I warned everybody.
It's all right. I'm gonna leave that alone. But I will say, when we engage in active listening, we are showing the person that we do value them, man. That's one of the benefits. You asked me what were the benefits. That's, to
Yeah.
me, one of the benefits, and it actually gives you credibility. With that person that is in pain, right, experiencing trauma, just need a listening ear, whatever the case may be. You're basically communicating something to this person that says, "Wow, Terrence, wow, he really values what I have to say," and that goes a long way with people, man. I mean, it just does. It just
Yeah.
does. And if you go back to what the illustration that you mentioned earlier about the way you were raised, I was raised the same way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we can flesh that out some more later, but I think, you know, there's we have, as you stated earlier, and I agree, have taken that do as I said it, into our ministry, but then you want maximum results and return from leaders who are like, Doc, what do you want? You want 0% of me, or you want 100% of me?
Yeah.
You want 5% of me, or do you want, what I'm saying, 100% of me? The way you handle me, South Park coming out of me right now. See, let me
Come on,
bring
come on,
it back.
South Park.
That the way you handle me is gonna dictate what you gonna get out of me, right? And again, it may not be correct or a tit for tat. People, well, you did it to me, I'm gonna do it to you. I think that's a level of maturity, right, in the person that is not feeling heard or being heard, but it's also one on the person that should be listening.
Yeah. Wow. So So and let's build a bridge, right? The significance of those that follow you feeling heard is that as you build that bridge, increase credibility, they are seen as persons who have value. And when you make a person feel value, you get the better contribution from them.
Yes.
Let's call it out. If you say you're a leader and if people are struggling or no one is contributing to your vision, there's a broken connection, right?
Yeah.
Like we say, anybody who says they're leading but nobody is following them is just taking a walk.
Yeah, nobody can follow a car, brother.
Come on, nobody's gonna do it because people want to be a part of something significant. People want to be a part. People want to contribute to something that creates value and allows them to feel value.
Mm-hmm.
That's my assumption.
No, I agree. No, I agree 3,000%. You know, and when they don't feel that, then they begin to look for that in places, right, that may not be the best, may not be healthy, you know, or they just move on to a healthy situation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not rocket science. Yeah, it's not rocket.
Andy Stanley said this. He said, "Leaders who don't listen will eventually be surrounded by people who have nothing to say."
Wow, come on.
Leaders who don't listen will eventually be surrounded by people who have nothing to say. The shift in leadership, in my opinion, we've had for the last 50 years is helping leaders to realize that much of the answers to the innovation, the creativity, the forward progress of the vision does not lie in the head, it lies in the body.
Say it again.
Much of the answers to your questions about innovation, moving your vision forward, being more relevant, don't necessarily lie in the head. The answers are in the body. These are the people who are on the ground. These are the people who are actively performing, demonstrating the work, and a lot of the questions you may have about how do we move things forward, or at least the strategy and the tactics lie, not necessarily in the head, but they're in the body.
Yeah, one of the concepts. One of the concepts from CPE that I remember. Again, a lot of those, it was just foreign back then. But then when I began to kind of immerse myself, one of the concepts that stick out as you mentioned this is this. This as we're bringing our ideas to the what they call the pool of shared knowledge, right?
Mm.
You bringing it in a space and in a place to where, man, everybody's contributing, you know, and it's a different connotation in some areas. But the point is, you bringing it to one space where we can all kind of participate and benefit from the conversation, from the idea. And as I've said for over 25 years, man, God is not. We have too many people believing that they're the only resident experts, you know, and that is not the scriptures, bro. You know, there is strong. God does talk about strong leadership, you know, and but he also talk about, you know, collaborative leadership. What does that look like? You know, to be in collaboration, and one of the ways to do that is to exercise active listening. I mean, if I'm the only one speaking, then you're right, man. It's gonna be quiet, and people are gonna feel like, well, what do I have? Why am I here? What do I have to contribute? I mean, what do I have? You know, people may start second guessing themselves, you know, but to help people feel valued, as you mentioned earlier, you know, affirming their worth and their dignity, that God has wired them uniquely. And and that value, they go to value again, that God has created them with value and with purpose. And when we don't get the best out of people because we're the only voice that we want to be heard, it weakens our team, right? That's what weakens our leadership. And it sullies our impact. We will not make the deep impact that we're really trying to make. You're treading water, and it's only a matter of time before it becomes evident to everyone what is really, really, really going on. And I think over the years, I just got a call with a leader that you know, very well known person, and just got off the phone and we were talking about this, and I'll tell you later about it. But the point is, we was talking about this very point, man, this very point. And I said to the guy, I said, Pastor, we need to talk more about this, because I think it's something that if more pastors, especially we're talking about in the context of church planting, right? If more pastors could understand, you don't have to be a bully, you don't have to be the loudest person in the room, you don't,
Yeah.
none of those things, you know, gain. I would say listening could be a spiritual discipline. Here,
Come on. Come on.
hero is. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
listen,
Listen.
calm down.
Listen.
Listen, Linda. Help your team. Listen. Listen. Oh, here we go with the listen, Linda. Build trust. Because now you value me. I want to share more. But when you shut me down, Doc, then it's gonna be like, Doc, I don't think I really need to be saying too much in this conversation, because whatever I say, I feel like it's like when how do I put it? Feeling heard or feeling hurried.
Yeah, good. It's good. It's good. Come on, Mr. Acronym, y'all. This is Mr. Alliteration, Mr. Acronym.
Hey, that's the old people. That's what our brain has spider webs in them, so we have to find ways to retain them.
But this is
hurried.
Yeah, it's good. When you saying that, how you say something, my brain go, okay, because I have been in rooms. I'm gonna air my dirty laundry. I'm a fast thinker. When I get the phone, I'm ready to go. Come on, all right, let's go. I'm thinking now when you get my brain going. But when you think of yourself being in the dynamic of a team, you have to slow down so that everybody's involved in the momentum of the movement. And you can't, most of the time, the way I'm wired, I come in with answers. But that does not cause my team to be valued if I'm just sitting there answers and not inviting them into the journey.
Yeah.
I read this book, it's called The Secret, not that New Age book, but it's another book called The Secret, it talks about leadership. And they talked about you want to have both relationships and results. So getting results at the expense of relationships is still a loss.
Mm-hmm.
Or having relationships without any results is a loss. Wow. And so when you're actively listening and you're being patient and in invitations, there's another word, value, look at that word invitation. Mm-hmm. Are we inviting our people into the transformation journey? Or are we just going, what's the D? Is that the D on the disc? We just going to run it straight through, leave everybody in the dust? I've been that person. I'm like, no, it's clear, let's go. But sometimes God puts you on teams with people who have to move a little slower, a little more analytical. Come on. And he's actually working on you, Mr. Smart Man.
So see, you saying too much, bro. You saying too much.
I'm sorry.
You listen. Let me put it like this. As I listen, it's a lot that you said, you just dropped right there. But one thing, as I sum it up, would be this: man, could a sign of my spiritual maturity be connected to how well I listen? Right? Could a sign of my spiritual maturity be connected to how well I listen, man? And at the end of the day, you said I'm airing my dirty laundry, but you've been vulnerable and transparent. I was that guy as well, right? I'm still growing in that area, but I guarantee you, on a Likert scale from 1 to 15, I'm more about 13, 12 now, right, than I was back in the day. But my point is, I began to notice when I worked on high functioning teams, high capacity teams, right? and I could call some, man, especially in corporate America, but I would say this. I noticed what you just articulated. I noticed that on those teams, that when everybody got invited to the pool of shared knowledge, right? When people felt valued, when people felt all the adjectives that we have put on here tonight, man, it was kind of like a firestorm. Man, you couldn't stop the people, the innovation, the creativity, man, the morale shot through the roof, right? People
Mhm.
wanted to come to work. I remember listen, I remember I didn't have to be at this one company until uh, shoot 8 a.m. in the morning, 8 a.m. I was getting there at 6 o'clock because I was excited because I knew when I got there I was going to be in the company of a Terrence Samuels, right? I was going to be in a company of people who's going to stretch me, make me better. Listen to my ideas, I listen to them. We make each other better, sharpening each
Yeah.
other, right? Making the product that much better for the end user. It's
Wow.
not about us. And if I can, and so we're talking only one side of active listening. We hadn't talked about the various, types of, spaces that we would need to use this for someone who's on our team, because who's experiencing trauma, right? Who's for someone who's on our team who has a great idea, right? We can just go down the list and start looking at rabbit trails on how could this active listening be an asset in growing in our ministries and making them more sustainable and reproducible. We're reproducing that type of culture, as you mentioned earlier. We're
Come
a
on.
healthy culture, right? Not this stuff that has
Yeah.
creeped in and is like, pseudo. Really? That's what it is? No, it's not. And that's where I think we have to really begin to continue stuff like this and really start working with a lot of our newer church planters, since that's a space that we work in. Even at UBA, as I do consulting over there. A lot of the stuff that we're talking with pastors, established pastors as well, but a lot of these newer guys who are coming in, and just saying, brothers, this is a foundational discipline, being able to listen. And I could say much. I kind of digress.
No, you doing good. You the guru. I'm telling you, my brother is the guru. Okay. I mean, I know I dropped you. I just said I dropped a lot in that previous. I was just thinking about one part of active listening is not rushing to give an answer.
Come on, that's a sign of respect.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, uh, you having as a leader having the patience to wait or not to make statements trying to fix it. Let's sit and listen.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm in between two worlds. I even want to talk about. I want to kind of lean into from my seminary journey when I went through the pastoral counseling class and how we were really encouraged to learn how to sit with people, just to know how to sit in something's being shared, how not, as you said, not to rush, not hurry, but what that does for the talker, for the sharer, when we learn, we ain't got to rush to fix everything. What does that do for us?
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah,
What
yeah.
type of soul preservation happens when we are much slower
Mm.
and trying, as we engage in learning how to listen and sit and not have all the answers in any specific situation? That
Brother,
changed me.
yeah, James 1:19. Everyone should be quick to what? Listen, slow to
Listen,
speak, slow to be angry, right? Uh, being able to just sit. Job's friends, we always go to the book of Job, right? We talk about, Job's friends. Well, they were doing fine, first couple chapters, but then all of a sudden, you know, like all of a sudden, they lost it because now you start projecting, you start talking about some stuff that you know not of, and it's like, come on, y'all, that's not it, man. And so I think when we talk about consequences of not listening, from a ministry, I know we got a couple minutes, but from a ministry perspective, man, what, things like, missed ministry opportunities. Because I remember I'm the only resident expert now, so you don't really know that. You just along for the ride, right? Missed ministry opportunities, right? Increased conflict, relational breakdown,
Wow.
right? A whole bunch of stuff, right? Spiritual immaturity in the body. You talked about that earlier, man. Just man, just dead, right? Just dead, man. And it's like, dude, do we really? Are we trying to grow? Are we trying? What are we doing? What are we doing? And again, you said it earlier, man. I've been guilty. We've all been guilty. I remember when I was pastoring Christian Life. I'll never forget, and I share this story all the time with leaders, man, because I'm on a disc. I'm a C, so I'm analytical. I'm quiet in the room, right? I'm not quiet to not contribute to the pool of shared knowledge. I'm quiet because I'm trying to listen and I'm flipping that thing in my brain. Oh, okay, all right, huh, all right. So I'm the person on the team that's the strategist. So I'm trying to make sure that we get to our destination without injury because I don't like pain.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, how do we get here the safest way possible, right? So anyway, I can remember when I was pastoring church and had my deacons, my preachers, and everything. I had about 10 guys, bro, and we would meet every Sunday morning. About 3 years, 3 or 4 years, I was dumping everything I paid for in seminary. They got it for free, right? And so, man, I remember one initiative we were working on, and I knew most of them did not have experience in ministry, and especially in this area right here, I already knew it. So I was like, moving and shaking. But long story short, we got to a point to where, it was time to make a decision. So I made a decision, because I'm like, nah, y'all tripping. But a guy said some important stuff that I missed, and I intentionally, right, I missed, and it's like whatever, whatever, and it cost me in the long run because I should have listened more, or say, leaned in more. Terrence, tell me more, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting, right? So when you're saying, so I reframe it, right? So when you're saying, let me make sure I'm understanding this right, that you're saying, man, in your site, you're saying da 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 da, right? And I come back and say, yeah, that's exactly. I didn't do any of that stuff. And again, that's some simple tools, but I'm
Yeah.
saying if I would have had that back then, I think that particular situation would have turned out a little better. Another situation, a little shorter story, was when we did agree on something as a team, our lead team, my core lead team agreed on something, and everybody shaking their head in affirmation. I got it. We got it. Let's go, Pat. We got it. Right. It felt like 2, 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 10 weeks later, I was 10 blocks ahead of them. They were still standing in the same spot.
Yeah.
Right? That's how I felt. That's how I felt because it was like, man, what's going on? So when the point of, man, being able to understand your team, understand that each person's contribution is where I'm going with this. That not everybody's going to think as quick as we're going to think, or process is long, right? We have to be able to respect each other's contributions, and so that that team can be as solid as it can be, right?
Yeah.
And we can get the maximum out of the person, the project, so forth and so on.
Yeah. These conversations, we had 35 minutes, and we just get started. I'll leave a few more minutes, but I want to, we guys, the objective of our time, of course, is we know what you're dealing with. We've been through enough, number one. We have enough experience. Number two, we've had the education components. Number three, we've talked to enough people to know what's happening in these spaces. And so there are things that we want to provide, not just through a live stream or a podcast, to our community leaders in various spaces, industries, and functions to help walk alongside and partner to help you get the best out of your ministry, your business, your organization, your family. Because while we talk about these things in the ministry context and a little bit in the professional context, the same skills can be applied to your family. How many of us, spouses, husbands and wives, parents and children, struggle to demonstrate active listening? No, I got no.
You actually read my mind when you said the family component, because when I was in CPE, I'm telling you, that thing changed my life, brother. That 2 years of being in that program and then become, director of the hospital, bro, that changed my life. And one of the ways I remember with my supervisor, we had to do one-on-ones, right? We did group peer reviews, then we had our IS, individual supervision sessions with our supervisor. And not one or two, the majority of my sessions with her was like, I don't understand this. I'm not gonna go home and do this with my wife because she's gonna be looking at me like I'm crazy. Because to me, it's just so what are you saying? Are you saying, let me make sure I'm getting this straight? Well, I didn't feel right. It felt just so awkward because I wasn't used to doing that, or just spending time with my wife and just said, okay, let me hear what you're saying without, of course, interrupting or they feeling like we know it all, right? And I think again, I like the balance of teaching. I think that needs to sentiment is shared on the man's side as well as on the woman's side. Come on,
amen. Amen.
Listen, I have to balance the teaching because some people they don't listen to me. No, sometimes you don't listen, but that's a conversation. That's another conversation.
That's a conversation for another day.
But yeah, as you talked about that family, man, I think all those domains, home, work, church, community, all those domains. When we talk about active listening, has a component where we can sharpen up, right? Sure, that skill set. Yes, sir. I agree.
Yeah, man. No, that's that. Man, we just spent 30 minutes talking about active listening, doc. And we just touched the tip of the iceberg. Like we didn't even get into the nonverbal communication.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Yeah. Like, how are you sitting? Are you you got your phone while you talking? Are you are you asking questions? Are you taking these are ways in which we cause a person to either feel valued or less valued, or not valued, and then it erodes the trust, the connection, the credibility. So now you got conflict.
Yes,
because you got people walking around who can't get stuff off their chest, whether positive or negative. They don't feel like they got a voice. Now there's conflict. Now you got what we used to call undercurrents.
Yes. Yes. No, that's brother. That's rich. And you're right. I was going to mention it earlier, but now that you said verbal communication, we have to be able to, if we're in the room, and those are skills and techniques, right? Of how to, if I'm in a room with you and you're talking, to really be present is the term with you in the moment. That means my eyes contact. I'm doing verbal cues, where as you nod your head, I'm doing the same thing, right? As you move, then I may move, right? If you lean forward, I lean forward, right? It's little things like that shows people, hey, man, I care. We listen not only with our ears, but with our eyes. You better take note of that. With our ears, but with our eyes, because I'm paying attention to the nonverbals, right? I'm looking at your facial expressions. I'm looking at the tension. I can feel, sometimes the tension that's in the room based on your tone, based on where you are. And we have to know how to adjust and deal with those things. So no, we hadn't even talked about those things, but that's a conversation for another day.
This conversation for another day. Doc, listen. So
what about this before we go to that? Give me. Look, I'm going to be the host. I'm going to flip it on you. Give me maybe some things that when we talk about this active listening, why more? I guess why more leaders don't engage in active listening.
Yeah. First think is either the leader, I'll say the leader has never had to, the leader has never been taught to engage in active listening. Therefore, they don't know the importance of it.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, I've been in situations where I've, maybe not felt heard and tried to slightly redirect and ask, and the exchange is not healthy because that leader doesn't consider it important, has never been taught, has never been modeled.
Yes.
So, and then I can go down a rabbit hole about the trauma associated with a leader who keeps losing because they fail to active listen. Come on, man. I might be a Baptist. So that's the first part. The second part is, sometimes, as we talked about earlier, we got leaders who have all the answers and may have been taught the skills but don't think it's important because of some, ego-driven behavior. And so, that's the second thing I think, and then the third thing I would say is, without that invitation, you have to invite people into the space. You have to make it clear that you want their input. You have to create a space. As leaders, we have to be influencers and create spaces for people to talk. And I don't know that we know how to do that.
And not dumb.
Go ahead.
And not dumb. I ain't trying to engage in. I mean, I'm sorry, Lord. Some stuff. Like, just a waste of time. I'll just tell you straight up. Say, man, listen. Some stuff just like, y'all, this is filibustering. We're wasting a bunch of time because it's time to get this gospel. It's time to get these people, these leaders equipped, But I agree. You said, just, man, don't know, lack of training, when I think about it, I think Proverbs 18, fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but in only expressing his own opinion, right? Pride, time constraints, right? And I think there's a place. It's so much. I think there is a place for picking the right moments, but sometimes those moments aren't perfect. And I think we have to be mature enough to be able to recognize that. And you said, give some cues and maybe be able to say, you know what, Darrell, man, wow, I'm sorry. You do that well. I mean, I pay attention to how you, man, engage people. You do that very well, and how to redirect them, and maybe say, you know what, I really want to hear more about this. I want to schedule some time. Can we ask permission? Would we be able to schedule some time to and or if it's just a pressing thing, then hey, can I take 3 minutes just to make a phone call to reschedule this meeting, whatever that looks like. But sometimes we have to understand the time constraints. Sometimes we just don't listen well because we're always on the run. We're always on the go. You said always got your phone. You're always doing something. Man, that's not healthy. Fear of losing control, man, or authority. If I let Terrence talk, then people gonna say, "Oh, that dude is pretty smart." Then they're gonna make me look bad. That's not Bible. That's territorialism. That's okay. It's ridiculous. It's time out. It's time out. So lack of EQ, no EQ, no. I'm not even talking about the IQ because of but no emotional intelligence, man. And so it's a bunch, man. I just think those are things that God is teaching me and training me and helping me get better with. And when I'm around people like you, shout out to my boy Joe Chin, people like y'all, bro, who are like, I'm like, dang, now I know. Like we ought to be going from a 0 to 1,000. Like Tanny smiling. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about it. So it takes me back to the CPE classroom in Houston Methodist Hospital. I'm growing. I'm getting better. I'm getting better. I want the teams to be strong, man. God, man, we don't have a lot of time, man. My favorite verse has been, here lately, just really, redeeming the time, but also, Psalm 90, that, 16, 17, God, man, make what I do count. every moment. You know, we don't have a lot of time. So anyway, that's the short version.
No, bro. That's good, bro. I'm with you. Like, not including the things we go through personally in life. So you look up and you say, man, like, what have I done, and how can I begin to walk into this level of significance and contribution and add value and transformation to the world? And so, yeah, bro, like, I think for me, when I realized that my greatest resource will be people.
Come on, yeah.
If you ain't got money, but you got influence, you can turn your influence into.
Yeah.
You influence at the end of the day. I think there's something in the Bible that talks about a good name is worth more than riches.
Proverbs 21, Reverend.
Okay. I know it was in the 20s somewhere. My address is a little off.
Your address is off. That's the benefit of being on the Blake Wilson, Doc. If it was for over years, I gotta know some verses, Doc. I gotta know the address.
You gotta know the address, Doc. Well, I'm gonna mention Proverbs 29 2 a minute ago. I know that one. He says, when the righteous rule, the people yours.
What happened?
Good. And when the wicked rule, it say basically like the people grow miserable. To our point, this is our closing remark right here. Good leadership creates joy, and bad leadership creates grief.
Yeah.
If we can improve as leaders, folks can experience joy. The Bible says the people rejoice, we celebrate great leadership. And when the wicked rule, then it's grown, it's miserable. And sometimes we have to really evaluate our own personal leadership style. What effect are we having on others? Man, we 27 minutes in.
We gotta go. We have a great leader in Jesus Christ, brother. I mean, you gotta take it to the cross. A good Baptist gotta take it on to the cross. So you can't lead us talking about the master leader who listened to the woman at the well in John chapter 4. Oh, and he listened. You see what I'm saying? You gotta go there. You can't.
Did he listen?
That's what we're doing. Like you have lost this. You have this leader in front of you, Jesus. You're following. And you with humility, and as he led, so we lead. We are supposed to be doing it. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So with this and everything else that we're going to talk about, we've talked about. I appreciate the time. And one of the workbooks that I'm writing currently on grief, actually, is 98% done. I just have a few to put out there. And then, but I spell out another acronym. I'm an acronym guy. That's how I remember stuff. The acronym, and it talks about this importance. One of the aspects is active listening. So,
as we're going, guys, I want to push my brother. I want to be known. I'm a supporter of Darrell Jackson. Darrell Jackson, bro, talk about the book you've published real fast. Because we're going to be engaging the content in the book he's published in the next few weeks or so. I think that everyone knows, we have more single people than ever in the United States, especially. And so we really want to create room to help persons who are unmarried think through how to mate healthily. So go ahead and put a plug in for your book that you've already published, and then get us ready for the books you got coming out.
No, I appreciate that, man. Before we go too far, a practical checklist for Christian singles. That book came out, workbook, actually. I think we're going to, I'm going to hold this because when we talk about it, I'm going to talk about the trademark. So I don't want to release it too fast. Yeah. But actually, the workbook came out, and it was really designed for, Christian singles, man. A lot of, you're like, well, you married for 32 years. Yeah, I am, but I was single. And so I understand the ebbs and flows, understand the ups and downs, and really how people spend a lot of time getting ready for the ceremony, but don't understand the importance of the relationship and how it needs to be developed over time, right? The journey, the love, all those things. And so really this tool it's a workbook. And let me just say it's work. It's really asking and answering the questions that need to be asked or answered, before you say I do. Right. And that's it in a nutshell. Asking and answering the questions that you need to ask or answer before you say I do, or you get your heartstrings tied around somebody's pinky finger. And then you go spend all this money and then time, and you go back, you're hurt, and now trauma and PTSD and all that other stuff. What I'm suggesting in this book is spend the time on the front end, or if there is a significant person that you're saying, hey, I believe this is one. How do we know that? What are the metrics? What are some of the things that we can go walk through in a practical way to pray through, and also ask those and answer those questions. But also, watch this: have accountability partners with you along the way. If it's your pastor or some trusted mentor or accountability partner, that those people will be walking with you every step of the way, including that person. So you're pretty much, and let me just say this, T, and we're done. There are no perfect relationships. I believe I say that in this workbook. There are no perfect people. None of us are perfect, right? So it's nothing about that. But it's really a tool that I, my wife, and many other people wish they had, to ask and answer those questions, man, before they jump in because the bedroom was right. Oh, ooh, I said that.
Oh, you done jumped in the bed, but you ain't jumped through the hoops. You ain't figure out who you are. You jumped in the head. Oh.
See, you don't even know what they thinking about. You don't know what kind of beliefs they have. All you know is he good love. I'm sorry.
Not good loving, Doc.
Now that love is gonna wear out if it ain't built on the rock. His name is Jesus.
You done jumped in the bed or you jumped in the head. My
Come on, you better know what's in there.
You
end up with a nightmare. Get off my
Doc, hey, bro, thank you, man. Hey, listen, what I need for you guys to do is like, comment, share.
It's all on social, Amazon, any digital platform, Kindle, it's everywhere. We're gonna do more to promote it, but yeah, that's what it is, Doc.
Yeah, go get that book. I put it in the comments. I put it in the chat. Put it in the comments before we go too far. By Darrell Jackson's workbook for Christian singles. Listen, this time has been so fruitful, bro. Friends, I need you guys like, tag, comment, share. If you heard something that inspired you, share it on social media. Share it with somebody you know. The only way that we're going to create a revolution is we have to create a movement. And so it takes all of us buying in what we're talking about. I love you guys. Thank you for joining the Life, Leadership, and Love.
All right, bro.